Well, you already know what it is. It's another episode of E-Thought Conversations where we bring people who are educational, who are entertaining, who are engaging, who are difference makers in this world. And they got another difference maker today. You may not know his face, you may not know his name, but I guarantee you've heard his sound. He's done projects, live engineering for such icons as Prince, the Winans, the whole family, Neyo, Kanye, Phyllis Hyman, the Jacksons, Debbie Gibson, you name it. Who did I leave off? His name is Doreonne Strammler, but tell him, who did I leave off?
You left off quite a few people, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm perfectly content with the names that you said. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
okay. So he's done live sound engineering, live studio recording for some of the greats that I just mentioned. I want to get right into it. What first sparked your interest in sound engineering, and how did you know that was your calling?
I knew it from a child, probably about 6 or 7. I've always been into music. My father, when I was younger, he used to, he thought he was a winemaker, so he would be in the basement with old pantyhose making wine. Ernest and Julio Negro. Because he got to strain the grapes or whatever. So while he was doing that, he would be playing Norman Connors and Phyllis Hyman and all of these different people. So I was an excellent reader very young. And so I memorized all those names that were on the back of the album covers. So when I got into it, by the time I got to LA, I knew who Feeling Games was. I knew who all of these people were before I even started working with them. And BB and CC came to my church and sang at our Easter service. And BB, my arch nemesis, was the one who sent me over to the Wine Studio, which was famously on 7 Mile in Livernois. And when I pulled up, Pastor Winans was coming in the door, and I told him BB sent me over there. He asked me, "Do you have a snake in your car?" Because aside, veterinary, we had a few times people knocked on the door with their dogs and stuff. And so I went on in the back, and we started work. I started work that day. We were working on Mom and Pop's solo album during the day, and the Winans Return record at night. So the rest, as they say, is history. But I got to say, if it wasn't for the Winans, the brothers, I would not be in the position that I'm in right now. David, Ronald, Marvin, Carbon, Michael, Daniel, BB, Cece, Angie, Debbie, all of them have contributed to my success. So I always make sure that I give the Winans family, even BB, a shout out because I appreciate all of them. R.I.P. Ronald.
Because I never knew how you originally came into the camp. I was doing road managing at the time. It's just like you just showed up. And for context, the studio was an old veterinarian hospital, I guess you could say, and they converted it into a studio, so it kept a lot of the riffraff away. If the
Mm-hmm.
riffraff that wasn't coming down Livernois.
Yeah, no,
But you just
no,
showed
not
up.
back
The
then.
next thing I know, you
Yeah,
was working.
yeah, amazing Winthorpe. Yes, sir. That's exactly what happened. And then I was working in the studio and different things, and Peanut was taking me everywhere. Like I was going to the convocation with them. I was everywhere, but I wasn't doing that. I wasn't mixing. I didn't have my hand on the console. What he had me doing was, um, he when we were cutting that mom and pop stuff, he had me get a chair and go sit inside the booth where the drums was set up. And I was sitting in there, and Dana was playing. Shout out Dana Davis. He was in there playing, and I didn't understand why I was sitting in there. So the next day, a few weeks passed, and we did a tune with Ladysmith Black Mambazo called "Leaning on the Everlasting Arm," and Peanut had me get a chair and sit around them, as they were singing in the booth. And then we went down to convocation. I don't remember where we were, but Twinkie was on the organ. She's up there killing on the organ. He had me get a chair and sit right by the organ. And so that day I had enough, because I was, I ain't here for that. I'm here to do so and so and so and so. So we was in the parking lot, and that's back when he had Jackie, that burgundy Jaguar. He's about to get in, and I walked up to him and I said, "How come I'm not doing nothing? I'm just sitting. I'm not doing no sound. I'm just sitting listening." And he had the door open, he shut the door, he looked at me, and he said, if you don't know what a drum set sounds like, then you'll never be able to mix a drum set. He left me standing right there in the parking lot. He pulled off as I watched the dust fly up in my face like Charlie Brown. I thought about what he said because, you know, Skater Mario Winans, shout out Skater, my main man. He used to tell me all the time we'd be in the studio cutting. He would always say, I don't want you to change my drum sounds. I just want you to enhance them. And I think that was the main lesson that I took away from him was my job was always just to enhance what I do, what they do, so to speak. You know, Neyo, everybody always talks about, you know, oh, he's the reason why I sound good. That's not true. Because all I do is turn the mic on. If you sound terrible, it's just going to be sound terrible louder. So
Yeah, because you said something I think is powerful. Talk is really about paying dues. How much credit do you give to paying dues that you didn't start just coming and mixing? Because really, you weren't doing anything. A slot opened up, and you were prepared when the slot opened up to come on the road, which took you to a whole nother atmosphere and different relationships.
100%. That's what's wrong with. That's why you see a lot of the people on American Idol and The Voice and all of this. They come on and they do well and they go far in the competition. But then when the competition is over, you never hear from them again because part of paying your dues is learning and perfecting your craft. Because Peanut used to say all the time, always respect the music. The moment that you stop respecting the music and what it stands for is the moment you have lost the battle. You might as well go work at McDonald's or something because you won't make a difference. And at the time I was ready, but I guess Peanut sensed that the only way he gonna be ready is for me just to push him out there. So one morning, about 5 o'clock in the morning, he called me and he said, hey, our sound engineer, he can't make the date. And you want to go do this date with us? Yeah, I'm gonna do it. When is it? Meet me at the airport. I was like, meet you at the airport. That was my first time getting on a flight ever. And I sat next to Kern, cause shout out Kern Brantley. And I got there and that was the first time I had seen a console that big, first time I seen a PA that big. And he must have sensed that I was nervous because I was back there on the console and I must have been looking nervous. And he saw me from all the way up there. He got off the stage and came back there. He got up on the riser. He said, you gonna do this? What we doing? I was like, yeah. He said, look, man, either you gonna do it or you not. Did I make a mistake bringing you here? I said, no, sir. He said, all right, let's get it. And he walked back up there. And the rest, they say, is history. But I have to say that I had good guidance along the way. I had excellent teachers. Percy Beatty, Steve Ford, shout out Percy and Steve, because I learned how to layer sounds from Percy Beatty. I learned the envelopes for synthesizers and all that stuff from Steve Ford. Like I was surrounded by greatness and shout out to you, Eric, because that's how I learned, which is something that I still do today in like gauging the crowd on your volume, because there would be times when you would walk up to me and you'd be like, sound good, but come down a little bit. It sounds good, but come down a little bit. You know, we in church, so come down a little bit. So I had a lot of people along the way who were like my guardrails, so to speak, on my journey.
We're going to go to story time because when I drop names, I want you to talk about each person and what they've added to your life and just the experience. But people notice when sound is bad, but what goes into making sound seem effortless and seamless?
Preparation. Preparation number one is the difference between a good engineer and a not so good engineer. Basically, if all things being equal, if the system is in there right, you got all the tools you need. The difference between a good one and a so-so one is the so-so one don't know the music. That he don't know the music, so he don't know when the solo is coming. He don't know this person is about to sing. Like I find that a lot. I hear it a lot, in the industry where people are not prepared They're not ready, so they have to get ready when the call comes in. So if you're ready, you don't have to get ready. You are ready. And part of that preparedness is understanding your craft. And that's one thing. Shout out to Garzel McMurray and RIP Mike Brown, because they were they hammered that into me about knowing what microphones work for what situations. And I had teachers. I was taught stuff that will never be taught again. Like, I went out and did some shows with the Spinners back in the day for Mike Brown, and that was like being on tour with your grandfathers. Because you go in the dressing room before the show and they all in there with their house shoes on and their robes, and they in there, just. But it was very telling in that, that you want to hear the vocal, but not so much, because if it's too loud, then you're stopping the people from having a good time. So that's how it is with the Spinners. But see, with the Winans, it was something completely different, because like Quincy said, you know what it says out there on the marquee? I said, the Winans. He said, you notice it doesn't say anything about the band, man. I was like, ooh, ooh. Which meant that he wants to hear more of the brothers. He said, I didn't sign the band, I signed the brothers. I was like, mm. And he walked off. I have a lot of lessons in my life where people say stuff to me and they walk off. I don't know what that's about.
But at least you got the lesson. So
Yeah.
if I hear you correctly, one of the elements of a good engineer is preserving the emotional integrity and the sound of each individual. It's not Doreonne, this is my mix. Of course, you have your sound, but you're
Mm-hmm.
enhancing what they do. Is that correct?
That's correct. That is correct. It's a vibe, and I learned that from the Queen, and not the Queen of Soul, but the Queen. I used to call her the Queen of Emotion, Phyllis Hyman, because she used to, she told me one time. She looked at me and she said, if I don't look out in the audience and I don't see grown men crying when I sing "Meet Me on the Moon," that's your fault. I was like, okay.
So what was she looking for?
Steve, I used to record every show, and after most shows, we would, on cassette. So we would sit in her dressing room after the show, and she would play the tape, and she would play it bar by bar, literally pausing it to point out the things that she liked and the things that she didn't like. Phyllis was the one who showed me how to create emotion with reverbs and delays. And she used to say, when I sing "Meet Me on the Moon," I want these people to think I'm on. When I go to that whistle, it better sound like I'm sitting on the moon and I'm whistling and the people on earth are hearing it. That's how emotional I want this to be. Keep in mind, I got Stanley Turrentine in the audience, Herbie's in the audience, David Bowie's in the audience. You know what I mean? So it was like, I didn't have a choice. I had to succeed because failure was not an option. I was in a situation that at that time, you would never see that again. And, RIP, she passed away some years later, but I still take care of that with me, like the emotional side of mixing, on the ballads, which is something else that I learned from you. Like, on the ballads shouldn't be as loud as the opening number. So keep that in mind when you mix it. Like, it's a process. It's just like anything else. When you go into surgery and they prep you, they drape you, they shave the part that's gonna get in, they anesthesia, and then they check it, and then they cut. It's a whole procedure. Well, mixing is a lot like that. Shout out Barney Perkins and Mike Powell, who let me hang out while they was doing the Anita Baker records. And I posted that about that side stick a few weeks ago. Like, that side stick, I stole that from Barney Perkins all day long. So
I see.
the side stick. So on the side, that Anita has a song called "Talk to Me," and it opens. Ricky Lawson is playing that side stick, at the top of the song, and Anita's singing over it, but it has a distinct sound to it. And then I did a live show, and I just duplicated that sound that he had with that side stick. So when the guy was hitting it, like, it sounds just like it did on the record, which is something that I you know, it's a combination of compression and limiting and over compressing. It's a whole process. But I learned that from Barney Perkins, you know, R.I.P., who was a black engineer who mixed all of those Anita Baker records. Yes, sir.
Me coming to the soundboard giving you advice, I guess it would be. But one of the things you and I talk about that all the time is not only were we employed by the Winans, we were fans.
Mm.
So when I would be sitting in the audience, I was a fan. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
as a fan, I knew what was coming. And I was like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
you want to hear this? You want them to get this? You don't want to,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, it wasn't, you know, I didn't know. I just wanted, I know what was coming. I was like, man, you gotta work your magic there. This is
Mm-hmm.
gonna be a killer
Absolutely.
part. And those are iconic times. We oftentimes talk about that. And again, shout out to the four brothers, especially the Winans, that there were none that took gospel to another level like they did. The performance, the singing, the showmanship, the band, the whole production was just next level stuff.
And I like to go on record as saying, you know, contrary to, I know this is gonna start a firestorm when I say this, you know, but no disrespect to anybody, but Marvin Winans is the GOAT. Okay.
Flat out.
Y'all can stop with all the debating and all of that. He Marvin L. Winans is and always will be the GOAT. G-O, greatest of all time. Greatest to ever do it. I have learned so much from just watching him on stage drop in the middle where we were supposed to go to the next song and he just started singing a hymn and tore up the whole thing. But I had to be ready, like, cause he not gonna do it. So he gonna up burp right here, here you go, right here. You know, it's like, but he is the greatest of all time. I mean, shout out Pastor Winans. But the four brothers did stuff, you know, we talk about this all the time. You know, we be driving down the street when I lived in Detroit, you know, WJLB. And that was a new one from Teddy Riley and Rump Shaker. And now here's the Winans with a friend right here on WJLB. That had never happened before, ever in music or gospel music.
True story is like when we did the family tour. It's a funny story talking about Marvin Winans, the brothers being the GOAT. You know, the Winans is very competitive. So BB and them was selling records at the time. You know, they had Addictive Love, they had Whitney, they was platinum. You know, Winans just went gold, but they were the godfathers. So it was a little thing. BB and them wanted to close the family tour. And they was going back and forth. But we always close. We the oldest son. They was like, yeah, but you know, we got a little more juice right now. They said. Marvin Winans said, okay, go ahead. Shout out to BBCC. He closed that door in the dressing room. He said, brothers, y'all follow me tonight. Just follow me. Man, by the time he got off that stage, you're the only thing right there in the wrong world. Good God, mother. Oh, hey. And the band is going crazy. They finished, that crowd was, ah. And BB and them came on with, do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. It was like, after the show, they was like, that ain't fair. It's for y'all. It's two of us. It's like, it ain't that. He's just the GOAT.
He's just the GOAT. And nobody, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I saw Marvin Winans destroy Stevie Wonder on more than one occasion. And that's hard to do. I mean, he is, you know, I remember, shout out R.I.P. Pop Winans. They said, Stevie Wonder is over here, Pop. You know, he said, who? They said, Stevie Wonder. He said, ain't nobody a wonder but God. I said, okay, well, I guess you're not going then. But he was, you know, back in the day of when the Winans was in their heyday, Decisions, Return, and Stevie Wonder oftentimes would come up. You know, he would come on stage and he would meet us wherever we was playing, and he would come on stage and try to jump on Peanut at his show, and Peanut let him know in no uncertain terms, I love you and I respect you, but this ain't, you don't want no parts of this. And it was, I hate that I just don't have any of that stuff on tape today.
Bunch of recordings. Not only have you worked with the Winans, man, tell us how it was to work with Prince.
Here, this is a picture. This is a shirt I have on, which is a picture of Dave Chappelle. So everybody knows the famous Dave Chappelle skit on the Chappelle show about Prince playing basketball and him making them pancakes. Iconic skit. It's still hilarious as many times as I've seen it. But how this picture came about was right after that skit came out, Prince put out a song called Breakfast Can Wait. And this was the cover of the single. So what better way to get somebody, not even get somebody back, but to make fun of yourself than to put a picture of somebody dressed like you on your single? I think I'm gonna tell a funny story about him. So at Essence, they had the backstage, when he was walking, the backstage was shut down. So Lil Mama was backstage, and I guess she had to go to the bathroom or whatever. And so she was back there bumping her gums, talking about why we gotta hold up this or that, blah, blah, blah. And so she went on Twitter or something. Please forgive me if some of these details are sketchy. This was so long ago. But she went on Twitter and said something about him, on Twitter. And he hit back and said on Twitter, he had and I don't know how he got this picture of her shoes, but he took a picture of her shoes and the caption said, "At least my outfit match my shoes." Yeah, that's maybe something a lot of people don't know. He could be petty, bro. Like real super petty. Super petty.
Oh, I saw it was like Michael Jackson when he came to the Prince show, and he said he played the bass in his face, bang, 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 bang.
With his foot up on the armrest. And Michael was just looking straight ahead, never looked. He was right here, like his guitar. The guitar was like right here. So,
Worked with Kanye. How's that experience on the Sunday? What do you call
Sunday
it?
service, Sunday
Sunday service.
service. Yeah. It was a very unique experience from the perspective of, I think that at the time when he did that, he was, and still probably to this day, was just in search of a deeper relationship with God. And I think that was his way of summoning God to him. That was the best way he knew how to do it. And I have to say that some of those services were the most powerful services I had been in. And I've been all over the church circuit. But they were very exclusive. It was a kind of like a invite only type of thing. And back then he was, one time he called me. He called me at like midnight because we used to have to load in for Sunday service at 2 a.m. Saturday night to be ready Sunday morning. And he called me at like 1 o'clock. It was about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. He was like, "Hey, I was calling to see if you wanted something." You wanted? I'm in the line at McDonald's. I just see if you wanted something. I'm at home in the bed. Why are you asking me if I want something from McDonald's? Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. 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 That's kind of like, stories with my old roommate. I'm not gonna call his name.
Do you work with the Jacksons, Debbie
Yeah.
Gibson?
Yes, the Jacksons, Debbie Gibson, Angie Stone, Mick Skirkin, Michael Jackson, Aaliyah, Kehlani, Aretha Franklin, Gerald Levert, Men at Large, the OJs, the Whispers, the Spinners, Lauryn Hill, D12, Method Man, Redman, Whitney, Jamie Foxx, Solange, Tori Kelly, WV. Yeah, got quite a, yeah. I
I
work
think
with a few people.
one of the good things about that is singers, they're performers. They're not just auto tunes and chorus singers.
I tell people, I say this all the time that my journey is a little bit different because I have never worked with someone who couldn't sing. So I struggle with that. when I hear somebody that can't. I generally I either leave or I get fired, basically, because I don't do that.
So again, how has mixing and live sound changed over the years? What are your challenges?
Pro Tools. You see, back when I was doing it, we did everything on 2 inch. It wasn't no computers. All them backgrounds on the return on the decisions record and all of that, those were sung live repeatedly. We didn't get to samplers until the return record. You see, they would sing it one time and then fly it. But back then, they had to sing it. Now you can sound like a coyote singing in the microphone, and they can fix it up, make you sound like you know what you're doing. But it wasn't like, see, back then you had to sing. You had to, you now you can cheat, So, and again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about just paying dues and perfecting your craft and being real. There's a guy, his name is I sent you hit that clip from American Idol where he bodied Hello by Lionel Richie. Is his name Victor? I can't remember his name, but see where he's singing like that. When I tell you, Lionel Richie should never sing that song again. He bodied him on national TV. So yeah, that's the difference. The process has changed a lot.
You think people call you? Why would I call you to do live or in the studio?
Because I think that I bring something to the table that is a lost art form. And because I have done so many different things, orchestras and big bands, and I've done a lot of things that, when artists today do them, the engineers that are out with them now, they have never heard an orchestra. They don't know the difference between a violin and a viola. Two instruments that look the same, but they serve different purposes. And if you don't know the difference between a violin and viola, once again, shout out Steve Ford. I had never heard a French horn until he played it on When You Cry. Had never heard it before. Now you know what that instrument, where the placement of it is for. And so a lot of artists, we did a run with Neyo where we did some orchestra shows, and an orchestra show is a completely different monster than just a regular show, because you got the band on stage, but you want to hear the band, but the focus is the orchestra. So the trick is to get them all in one big pot of gumbo, if you will. So I think people call basically because that's why Kanye called me, because of my experience with, the brothers and, various others. That was what he was trying to reproduce on Sunday with the choir.
Y'all crossed paths before? How did he find you? How did the connection happen?
I don't even recall now. I think it was somebody in his band who recommended me. I think it was somebody in his band, because the choir sound wasn't, the choir wasn't popping like he was envisioning it. And somebody told him, call Doreonne. He Ryan Winans' family and friends right there, Doc. And then I came, and then I brought filling games in, consulted with him on some things, and shout out Stereotypes, Ray Romulus, who was with us for a while, and it was a good time. It really was. It just it ended. He was on to something else, and so
Separates a good mix from a great mix, live or studio?
presence presence on the presence of like Peanut used to say, convince me of the lyric, but don't lose the presence of the preeminent sound. Like, he used to use his hand like this, and he would be like, take your hand now, put it close. Now you notice how you hear your voice different right here. Now pull your hand back. And now this is how I want you to gauge the mix. So this is the foundation. Whatever that is for your mix, this is right here. And then as you come out, as you move your hand, it has a different sound that you're hearing. So you remember that it has presence, but it also has layers. So a lot of times when I go to the shows, um, and you hear a song like No Scrubs by TLC, and you hear that do 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 do. If you don't hear that, most of the audience has no idea what that is. You know, when you the wine is a friend, you don't hear those bells. Bling, 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 bling. If you don't hear those, you just hear a drum beat. So you just have to make the preeminent sound present for a moment, but then you don't want to hear those bells while he's singing back here. So it's a constant process, you know, to get the blend that you're looking for consistently, you know, not just for that particular verse or chorus, but you have to maintain it for the whole show, the whole 90 minutes.
So, what advice are you giving young people today, or those who aspire to be like you?
I need you to go and get the greatest hits of John Williams, and I need you to go get the Chick Corea Electric Band Lightyear, the very first one, and then I need you to go get the Decisions record. Oh, and Metallica, the Inner Sandman album. Listen to all four of those cover to cover, and you'll have everything covered in music that you're gonna do.
Man, you dropped some nuggets here today. A mixologist, Doreonne Strammler. Listen, we out of town, out of time. You going out of town? You going to Brazil tomorrow with Neyo? What's that all about? What y'all doing in Brazil?
We got 3 shows over there. It's the Carnival show and 2 private events over there. So we going in there, just hit them and quit them, in and out, in and out.
Well, it's been a pleasure. We're out of time, but I do this new thing I'm doing. It's called If I Could, I Would. So I'm gonna ask you, if I could, I would. If you could sit with anybody in history, who would it be outside of Jesus?
Dead or alive.
Your choice.
Hmm.
We'll just choose Jesus.
Just think.
The good master.
Good math. I would say, I would say it would be my grandmother, on my biological mother's side of the family. My grandmother was the only one on that side of the family who saw my gift early. And she told the whole family, she said, he's going to be greater than all of y'all. Watch. And she passed away some years ago, but I would love to sit with her again and, you know, and talk with her. She was my biggest fan. So
If you could mix both any record project or any live show that you have not been a part of, what would it be? What project that you haven't done, or project that's been already recorded, you say, man, I wish I would have had a part of that, or what live show?
man, you are really doing too much right now. Um, I have always been fascinated with the Beatles. Um, I think that it's not that they were such brilliant musicians as much as it was they just knew how to put elements together better than anybody else. So I would love to have been a project or a part of anything that the Beatles was doing, just to be in the studio with George Martin and Paul McCartney and John Lennon, because arguably John Lennon and Paul McCartney are the greatest songwriting duo of all time. I mean, arguably, but John Lennon, Paul McCartney. So yeah, I think it would be the Beatles.
I said you've worked with a vast array of artists and singers and musicians. I asked Fred Hammond this question. I'm gonna ask you too. If you could build a supergroup, 5 singers and 5 musicians, who would that supergroup be?
Man, you are really trying to get me in trouble. You are really trying to get me in trouble. Okay, this is a curveball. So I'm gonna go Layla Hathaway, Donnie McClurkin, D'Angelo, Brandy, and Fred.
Your band,
Mm. Oh
any
man,
musicians ever.
man, Vinny Colaiuta on the drums, of course. Rhonda Smith on the bass, Steve Ford on keys, Jonathan Dubose on the guitar, and the other keyboard I would have to say would probably be Percy Beatty.
My last one, if you could make a perfect performer, what would that performer look like or sound like or embody?
I would say Michael's stage presence, Prince's creativity, and Neo's humility.
So Neyo is a very humble person.
I've seen him. I've seen him. We've had people meet us at the airport. I think we were in Germany. He signed all of their autographs. Then we had to get the bags. So it takes us a little bit of time because there's a lot of us to travel, get the bags, go to the hotel, get to the hotel, and we get out of the car, and them same people are in front of the hotel wanting him to sign again. And you know me, I was like, "Hey, yo, hey man, he done already signed us." He was like, signed, re-signed all them same people's stuff again. And when he was finished, he turned to me and he said, "I never turned down a fan ever. And the reason I don't is because they are the reason that I get to do what I do." And I've been with him 12 years this year, and I have never seen him turn down an autograph or a picture ever in 12 years. Facts.
He sounds like he's just a good human being and grateful for where he is.
He is. He's a good human being. Him and I are we have a very special relationship. I don't talk to him that much. Everybody thinks that we talk every day. We don't. We really don't talk that much. But when we do talk, he always says over time, quality over quantity. And, I've been there for him through some periods in his life, and he has definitely been there for me. And in a way that's, you know, I think we understand each other. He understands me, and I understand him in terms of, the person that he is. We all have things that we could be better at and do better, including me. But he's a good, he's a good human being, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the good human. I've had a lot of good people like yourself in my life all these years that have been in my life that are, they're talented at what they do, but they're also just good people, like that spirit of humility and meekness that you've always had in spite of things. You've always been the same. Ever since I've known you, you've always been the same. So I never told you this, but I appreciate all the years of your guidance and wisdom. And, I always tell people that Eric is my seal. He's my consigliere because he's the dude that I call and talk to. He'll shoot you straight. He'll tell you something, it might not be what you want to hear all the time, but he gonna give it to you straight. So I appreciate that. Appreciate that about you.
Man, I appreciate you. We are brothers, and I thank you for coming on eThought Conversations. It has been absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing the stories of where you've been, how you've become who you've become, and like, comment, share this podcast. So thank you again for coming on there. Safe travels. I'm gonna give you a closing thought, and then I'll close with an eThought. What would you like to leave as a closing thought?
I wrote this on Instagram the other day, and I said, God is good to us. What did I say?
Good to us. I know it ended with "Let's be good to each other."
Why can't we end it with why can't we be good to each other? God is good, and God is good to all of us. But why can't we just be good to each other? And it's so much chaos and confusion in the world right now. But just be good. Let try and be, and that's something that I'm working on because I don't my family history on both sides is they're very antisocial people, and they will slap you in the mouth. I come from that, so it's been a road for me to get to the place of even caring about what somebody else may be going through or dealing with. So just be kind to each other. It's enough hatred and foolishness in the world.
That's it. You heard it from Doreonne Strammler. Safe travels, my brother. I appreciate you again. Like, comment, share. This is another episode of E-Thought Conversations. My E-Thought for today is, in the spirit of Doreonne Strammler, clarity isn't accidental, it's engineered. Peace.
I like
I love
that.
y'all.
Like,
Take that with you to Brazil.
I'm definitely using that. I'm definitely using that.
I love you, man. I'll see you
I
later.
love you, man. Later.